All right, today we're going to do something a little different. We're putting on our detective hats. We're going to take what looks like a complex jumble of financial data from Adani Enterprises and find the clear story that's hiding inside. So, let's get into it. So, what you're looking at here are basically our raw case files, financial reports from a couple of different years. And yeah, at first glance, it's just a sea of numbers and jargon, right? But our job, together, is to find that narrative thread. We're going to solve the puzzle of what these figures are really trying to tell us. Here's our game plan for this investigation. First, we'll crack the financial code. Gotta learn the lingo. Then we'll look at our first piece of evidence from 2018, see what the business looked like. Then we'll jump forward to a 2024 snapshot. And finally, the big reveal. We'll compare the two and see exactly what's changed. Okay, before we can even start to interpret the evidence, we need to understand what the clues actually mean. You know, every good detective has to know their terminology. So let's quickly go over two key concepts that are absolutely central to this whole story. First up, standalone versus consolidated. Think of it like this. A standalone report? That's a portrait of just the parent company, Adani Enterprises Limited. But a consolidated report? That's the big family photo. It includes the parent company and all the other companies it controls, its subsidiaries. It gives you a much broader view of the entire group's financial health. And number two, multi-segment versus single segment. Now this one is crucial, so really lock this in. A multi-segment report is like an itemized receipt. It breaks everything down and shows you exactly where the money is coming from. A single segment report? That just gives you the grand total. So keep these two ideas in your back pocket. They are literally the keys to unlocking this whole mystery. All right, you got the decoder ring ready? Good. Let's travel back in time. We are dusting off our very first piece of evidence, a financial report from late 2018. This is going to be our baseline. Now, the very first thing to notice is the type of report this is. It's a consolidated report. Remember what that means? We are looking at the big family photo. This is Adani Enterprises and its subsidiaries, all rolled into one back in the third quarter of 2018. And here are the headline numbers. So for that 3-month period, the entire group's revenue from operations was about 10,430 crore rupees. And out of that, they posted a profit of around 80 crores. These numbers kind of set the stage. They give us that first financial snapshot of the company at that point in time. So we know how much money they made. But the real question for a detective is, how did they make it? Where did that 10,430 crores of revenue actually come from? Well, luckily for us, the report gives us that breakdown. And here's the answer. Because the 2018 report was also multi-segment, it breaks down the business for us. And whoa, look at that. The trading segment was the absolute giant here, making up 88% of the revenue. Then you had mining and others, contributing their own smaller but distinct pieces of the pie. So the crucial point here is this. Back in 2018, the official story that the financial data was telling was of a multifaceted company. It wasn't just one thing. It was a collection of different businesses, each doing its part. Remember that picture? Okay, now let's hit the fast forward button. We are leaving 2018 behind and jumping right into our most recent piece of evidence, a report from the second quarter of 2024. Let's see what this new file has to tell us. Okay, pay close attention here because this is our first major clue. This new report is standalone. Remember, we are no longer looking at that big family photo. This is a snapshot focused only on the parent company, Adani Enterprises Limited. That is a huge shift in perspective. So let's look at the numbers for just this standalone company in Q2 2024. Revenue from operations clocked in at roughly 6,587 crore rupees, while their total expenses were just a hair under 6,100 crores, which gives us a profit of about 628 crores for that period. So, you know, on its own, a pretty healthy quarter for the parent company. The 2024 report also gives us some new clues that weren't there before. It highlights these key financial health ratios, like the debt-to-equity ratio, which basically tells you how much debt the company has compared to its own assets. This shows that the reporting itself has a different focus, with maybe more emphasis now on showing financial stability. All right, we've examined the evidence from 2018. We've examined the evidence from 2024. Now it's time for the final step in any good investigation. You lay the clues side by side, you see the full picture, and you understand what has fundamentally changed. And here it is. This is the heart of the story we've uncovered. In 2018, we saw a consolidated multi-segment report, a big, diversified group with all these distinct business lines.
But by 2024, the story completely changes. It's a standalone, single-segment report. The entire business is now officially described under one single umbrella: coal trading and mining. The company's reported identity has just fundamentally evolved.
So the biggest takeaway is this dramatic shift from a broad, diversified public story to a really sharply focused one. It raises all these fascinating questions, right? Questions about strategy, about corporate structure, and about communication. We started with a puzzle of numbers, and we've uncovered a story of transformation. And that just leaves us with the biggest question of all. What will the next chapter look like?